Disclaimer: this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before starting or changing any treatment, supplement, or peptide use. Let's dive into the world of Orexin A peptides. Orexin A, also known as hypocretin 1, is a neuropeptide produced in the hypothalamus. It plays a central role in regulating wakefulness, arousal, and appetite. The discovery of Orexin A and its partner Orexin became in the late 1990s, and since then, researchers have been fascinated by how these peptides influence sleep, energy, metabolism, and even mood. To start with the basics, Orexin neurons are relatively few in number, but their influence spreads widely across the brain. They project to regions involved in alertness, the sleep-wake cycle, reward and feeding behaviors. Orexin A binds primarily to orexin receptor type 1, while Orexin B has a stronger preference for receptor type 2. The interaction of Orexin A with its receptor is what keeps us awake and attentive. One of the most famous links to Orexin A is narcolepsy. In individuals with narcolepsy type 1, there is a loss of orexin-producing neurons in the hypothalamus. Without sufficient orexin signaling, the brain struggles to maintain stable wakefulness. This is why people with narcolepsy experience sudden sleep attacks, cataplexy, and fragmented nighttime sleep. The discovery that orexin deficiency is central to narcolepsy transformed the way scientists think about sleep regulation. But Orexin A is not just about sleep. It also plays an important role in energy balance and appetite. Orexin neurons are activated when energy levels are low, stimulating wakefulness and encouraging food-seeking behavior. This is a survival mechanism. When the body needs energy, the brain drives us to stay awake and motivated to find food. Orexin A connects the dots between metabolism and alertness. Research has also shown that Orexin A influences reward pathways in the brain. Dopaminergic neurons in areas like the ventral tegmental area receive input from orexin neurons. This means that Orexin A can modulate how we respond to pleasurable stimuli, from food to social interaction to addictive substances. This link to reward and reinforcement has led scientists to explore orexin signaling in conditions like addiction and obesity. Another fascinating aspect of Orexin A is its effect on stress and emotion. Orexin neurons respond to stress signals and can amplify the body's arousal system. When you are under pressure, orexin contributes to keeping you alert and vigilant. However, excessive orexin activity might also play a role in anxiety and hyperarousal. Researchers are still unraveling how Orexin A balances adaptive alertness with potential overactivation. On the therapeutic side, orexin pathways have become major drug targets. For narcolepsy and insomnia, scientists are developing orexin receptor agonists and antagonists. Antagonists, which block orexin receptors, help people fall asleep by quieting the arousal system. Several orexin antagonists are now approved for insomnia treatment, such as suvorexant and lemborexant. On the other hand, agonists that mimic Orexin A are being investigated for narcolepsy to restore wakefulness. This dual direction of therapy highlights how central orexin is to regulating sleep and arousal. Animal studies have provided even more clues about Orexin A's role. When Orexin A is injected directly into the brain, it produces robust wakefulness, and increases locomotor activity. It also stimulates feeding in rodents, supporting its role in appetite regulation. Conversely, blocking orexin signaling reduces food intake and decreases activity. This has led some to wonder whether orexin-targeted drugs could help in weight management, though the complexity of the system makes this challenging. Orexin A also appears to affect the autonomic nervous system. It can increase blood pressure and heart rate by activating sympathetic pathways. This makes sense because orexin is part of the body's readiness system, preparing us for action. The cardiovascular effects have sparked interest in how orexin contributes to conditions like hypertension or stress-related heart disease. In recent years, researchers have even looked at Orexin A in neurodegenerative diseases. There is evidence that orexin signaling may influence Alzheimer's disease progression by affecting sleep patterns and clearance of beta amyloid. Since poor sleep is linked to buildup of neurotoxic proteins, the role of orexin in maintaining healthy sleep architecture could be important in protecting brain health over time. Another area of interest is orexin's influence on pain perception. Orexin A appears to have analgesic properties in certain animal models. By modulating both arousal and pain signaling, orexin may help the brain cope with painful stimuli. This dual role of keeping someone alert while also dampening pain response is intriguing for potential clinical applications. It is also worth mentioning how Orexin A interacts with circadian rhythms. The release of orexin is not random. It is higher during periods of activity and lower during rest. This rhythm helps align the sleep-wake cycle with environmental cues like light and darkness. Disruptions in orexin activity, such as from jet lag, shift work, or neurodegenerative conditions, can therefore destabilize circadian regulation. Let's take a closer look at orexin receptors. The orexin 1 receptor, which Orexin A prefers, is distributed in areas involved in reward, emotion, and arousal. The Orexin 2 receptor is found more in regions tied to sleep and wake stability. This receptor distribution explains why Orexin A can have wide-ranging effects, from maintaining wakefulness to influencing motivation and stress. In practical terms, what does this mean for health and longevity? Maintaining a balanced orexin system is important. Too little signaling, as in narcolepsy, leads to excessive sleepiness and fragmented sleep. Too much signaling or poorly timed activity may contribute to insomnia, anxiety, or metabolic disruption. Finding that middle ground is the challenge, and it is why drug development in this area is both promising and complex. There is also growing interest in how lifestyle factors influence orexin. Diet, exercise, and sleep hygiene can all modulate orexin activity. For example, fasting or calorie restriction activates orexin neurons, while high-fat diets may blunt their activity. Regular physical activity tends to support healthy orexin function. Sleep deprivation, on the other hand, can destabilize orexin signaling, creating a cycle of poor sleep and disrupted alertness. In the broader picture, Orexin A represents how tightly interconnected brain systems are. A single peptide can link sleep, appetite, stress, reward, and cardiovascular function. It reminds us that health cannot be compartmentalized. When you address sleep, you also influence metabolism. When you adjust diet, you affect arousal and mood. Orexin A is a bridge across these domains. Looking ahead, One of the most exciting frontiers is orexin agonist therapy for narcolepsy. Early trials show that synthetic molecules mimicking Orexin A can restore sustained wakefulness in patients. This would be a breakthrough because current treatments rely on stimulants that do not fully replicate the natural orexin pathway. A true replacement therapy could improve quality of life dramatically. At the same time, the development of orexin antagonists for insomnia continues to expand. Unlike older sleep aids that broadly depress the nervous system, orexin antagonists target the arousal switch more precisely. This means potentially fewer side effects and a sleep that is closer to natural physiology. Beyond sleep medicine, researchers are asking whether orexin modulation could help in conditions like depression, anxiety, obesity, and addiction. Because Orexin A influences dopamine and reward circuits, it might be possible to rebalance motivation and reinforcement in these disorders. However, translating this into safe and effective therapies will take more research. The story of Orexin A peptides is still unfolding. From their discovery in the late 1990s to their role in drug development today, they demonstrate how a small group of neurons can exert profound influence on behavior and health. Whether through maintaining wakefulness, regulating appetite, or connecting stress with arousal, Orexin A continues to surprise and challenge researchers. Disclaimer: this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before starting or changing any treatment, supplement, or peptide use. Thanks for listening. Keep learning and stay curious.